Dancing Paladin, I have no idea who gets to name Hearthstone decks. If it was up to me, this would be Big Paladin. Got to make sure you say it right, Big Bay. By taking a look at it here, I think a lot of people had a theory-crafted deck similar to this one. This is actually the Vicious Syndicate list, if you'd like to check that out at vicioussyndicate.com. And it really revolves all around Kangor, Dancing King, the new Paladin Legendary. You're probably already familiar with this. If you don't have this card or any of the other cards in the list, I would recommend that you not craft them just yet. It's still early going in the expansion. You don't necessarily want to spend dust on cards that are not going to be powerful, unless you just think they'd be really fun. But definitely make sure that you're sure before you spend that dust. You don't want to spend dust on something that turns out to be really weak, simply because I feel like nobody is going to have a good time if they're losing the majority of games that they're playing, no matter how fun the individual cards are. Getting back to the deck here, you can see in the early curve of the deck, we really just have ways to be able to heal and to remove our opponent's board and survive. You can see Equality Consecration in here, Flash of Light, a little bit of healing and card draw and removal. Muster for Battle, really strong card for Paladin just to be able to fight for those early game boards. And then Service Bell, again, just card draw. Starlight Groove, going to make us much more survivable. And then you can see here a couple of copies of True Silver Champion. Again, it's just removal and healing. And then we get into Kangor and the big minions that we want. So the idea for the deck is we want to be able to get down Kangor as early as possible. If Kangor is hiding in our deck somewhere, then we would accept getting down a Lead Dancer or a Mass Reveler. Potentially we could pull out Kangor or pull out a 2/2 copy, which would also be just fine. And then the minions that we're going to be depending on to really win the game here, we have, of course, the Colossal, just very strong, has Rush. It's going to impact the board immediately, as well as Draw and Dredge. Very powerful effects. A couple of copies of Anoyo Troop. These are just very strong defensive cards. They put a lot of Taunt and Divine Shield in the way so that our opponent can't hit us in the face, which is going to be very good for our game plan. Amplified Elec, another taunt. It's also a big 6/12, Big Bay. It's going to deal 3 damage to the board when it dies. If you can imagine this with the Kangor Lifesteal on it, it could potentially just be Reno as it clears an entire small board. Or even if it doesn't clear the board, it's just a lot of healing if they have to kill it the hard way. Neptulon, of course, always makes the cuts into a deck that can cheat it out early, and a couple of copies of Stoneborn General. So all of these minions, we're going to be perfectly happy if the Masked Reveler lands on one of those. And pretty much that's just the way the deck is going to be played. It's going to function more of like a control deck until we get into our power turns of Kangor and some of these bigger minions, at which point we're going to be taking the opponent directly to our opponent's face. And with that, let's take it out onto the ladder and see how it plays. Big Boy. Right off the bat here, you can see that we are against a Death Knight. I'm really hoping this is not a Blood Death Knight. I think we're probably not favored in that matchup, although I don't have a whole lot of experience against Blood. But if it's Unholy or Frost, I think we should be just fine as long as we get a decent draw. I'm going to mulligan all of this, including the Lead Dancer. We want Kangor, we want Starlight Groove, we want Muster for Battle. And you can see here, unfortunately, no Kangor in hand. And it actually is going to be Renathal Blood Death Knight, so this is likely going to be a long match. This is going to be a nice pickup for us. You know, I say that, but realistically, we're not really expecting our opponent to be able to pressure our health total just because of the kind of deck that they're playing here. I'm going to hold the coin and just pass turn. If we potentially top deck like a Kangor, getting it down on turn 4 is going to be insanely strong. Hoping that our opponent hasn't found a way to be able to tech in a Silence. That would be really bad for us if they have. And again, I think I want to prioritize drawing cards more so than playing the Starlight Groove here. So I'm just going to go ahead and Service Bell. You can see we don't hit the Kangor. I'm just going to go ahead and grab the Muster for Battle. I think is going to be the best option that we have, and pass it back to our opponent, so at least it does thin our deck. Next turn, we'll likely just go ahead and play a Muster for Battle, and then we're going to go ahead and get down the Lead Dancer on turn 5 with the coin here. Other interesting option is actually to just coin out the Masked Reveler on turn 5. That's going to be significantly better, I think. The swing is going to go face. We're not going to take extra damage off of this, so the good news is if we don't top deck a Kangor for turn 5, we're just going to coin out the Masked Reveler. That's going to pull something immediately out of our deck, and maybe it's going to be early enough in the game that our control deck opponent isn't going to be able to respond to it. Something like an early Neptulon that our opponent couldn't kill could actually just win the game for us. Really unlikely because of the deck we're playing against, but it's just something to keep in mind. Outside of that, we're likely expecting just a really long game here. And our opponent actually choosing to trade for 1/1s. So I've said it before, and I will say it again. If you're watching my channel, if you're a fan of me playing Hearthstone, do not ever trade for 1/1s. Unless you're literally at 1 health and about to die, you don't make those trades. It's as close to a universal rule as you can possibly have in Hearthstone. You can see here we hit an Anoya troop. Was really hoping for like a Kangor, a Neptulon, or even a Stoneborn General, but it's better than nothing. And of course, when this dies, it's going to put out the 3 Anoyatrons as well. So next turn, we're just going to go ahead and get down the lead dancer. Again, this is just going to be another opportunity. It's actually going to be a 1 out of 3 in our current situation. The Anoya troop is a 3/6, and we still have 2 Anoya troops in the deck, as well as the Kangor. So it's going to be 1 out of 3 when this dies to actually summon the Kangor. And so we're just going to go ahead and get that out. And then at this point, I don't even know that we need to trade for the things that are on the board. I'm just going to push everything face here. We're going to let our opponent take the trades. They kind of have to. They've shown that they want to trade for these really small minions rather than punch us in the face. And so we're just going to let them do that. Try to work our opponent's health total down. Could be relevant a little bit later on if they don't hit healing. It is a Renathal deck. There's no guarantee that they have things like Blood Boil and Death Strike and whatnot. And you can see here we do hit an Anoya troop. And so at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and get down the Leviathan. We're going to draw a card, and then we're going to dredge, and hopefully we'll be able to find our Kangor. It's really what we're looking for here. Probably the only thing that we're going to be looking for. And I actually like to draw first, just so we have more information about what we might want to dredge. So I'm going to go ahead and hit with this guy first. And then we'll hit here for the dredge. And we are going to dredge up the Masked Reveler. We'll be able to get that down next turn. Go ahead and make the last swing of the weapon. And then next turn, likely we're just going to be playing the Masked Reveler. Hopefully our opponent, they do have something here on the board that will be able to kill off the Masked Reveler. And we're just going to try to develop boards. So we're kind of coming into the turns now where our opponent is going to have things like the Soul Stealer, Corpse Explosion. They're going to have ways to be able to clear our boards. But we're pretty much just going to have to play into it. I mean, it's a 40-card deck. They've only drawn 12 cards. Surely they haven't drawn every piece of removal. So we're just going to continue to try to look for our Kangor here. And you can see we actually hit an additional copy of Anoya Troop. And so we're going to just draw again. This damage is going to be going face. And then we're going to dredge, see what we want next turn. And I think we want to get the Anoya Troop out of our deck. If we hit another lead dancer, that's just a additional way to be able to get down the Kangor. Other option will be Stoneborn General here. Gonna take the Anoya Troop. And so that we don't overdraw it, I'm just going to go ahead and play this Maki roll, and I'm going to push the damage face. We don't need a super lot of healing here. Even just by playing the Starlight Groove, we can almost totally negate the damage that's going to be coming from the Alexandros. And likely going to be a board clear here, I would assume, at this point. And you can see the Soul Stealer comes down, so not unexpected. And we draw the Anoya Troop. So I think I would like to be able to go ahead and Service Bell. I want to make sure that I don't overdraw here, though. So we're at 9 mana, so we can go Service Bell. And Starlight, and then if we have to, we can just muster for battle here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I want to make sure that I make room in my hand first. And we're going to take the lead dancer. So now we're going to have a 50-50 to be able to get the Kangor. And then we're just going to go ahead and muster for battle, and we're going to push the damage face. So you can see here in a battle of basically 2 control decks, it is going to be a longer game, and unfortunately the Kangor is hiding. We know that it's not... Well, it's not bottom 2. I guess it could have moved into that position, but it's not at the top and not at the bottom of our deck. So Kangor in a really, really tough spot for us. And our opponent now is going to be creating a board just off of this Screaming Banshee. So we may even want to consider here just an Equality Consecrate to be able to remove all of this and then just push our damage face. Unfortunately, we're going to run into a point where we just die to fatigue damage. Just because our opponent has 10 more cards in their deck, plus we've been drawing more cards than they have. Equality Consecrate does not leave us room to be able to play the lead dancer. But it's still going to be the correct play. We just need to get rid of this stuff that's on the board. And it doesn't affect us all that much, the equality. We don't have big minions that we're actually casting the equality on, so we should be just fine. So we are going to just go ahead and play this Equality Consecrate, and we're going to take all our little minions and we're going to push face. Potentially we can force our opponents to play some type of a board clear on these really small minions. We're just going to go ahead and draw a card. And then we're going to Hero Power. You can see we hit Neptulon here. So again, Kangor, it's not been in the top 21, and it was not on the bottom 3 the 2 times that we've been able to dredge this game. I can't imagine there's any world where an army of 1/1s on the board is actually going to be able to kill our opponent. They should have access to plenty of removal here. And so it's just been a really uphill battle. If we had the Kangor early, I think this matchup can potentially go our way. But I do think overall we're probably unfavored against this deck. Just because we're not able to pressure our opponent's health total early. And you can see here they actually hit a second copy of Alexandros, which is bad for us. Let's see, we have 7, we have 11, 14, we have 16, so potentially we can actually set up lethal next turn. I almost think we take a trade and put down a lead dancer here. Trade 1 minion like this. We'll go ahead and get down our lead dancer. Then I'm just going to go ahead and equip the True Silver. And then we're going to shove all of our damage face. Again, there's some possibility that our opponent just doesn't have healing, and that we can get some kind of a sneaky lethal here with the Hammer of Wrath and the Consecration that we have in hand. Extremely unlikely, but it is possible. Still a 50-50 as far as the Kangor. I think our other Anoya troop is in the deck, as well as the Kangor. And you can see here, at least they didn't heal, but they're able to push a lot of damage face. And they're also running Corrupted Ashbringer, so now our health total is getting really low. So our opponent, and again, just no Kangor. Really, really unfortunate. And our healing has kind of been shut down here as well, so I'm going to swing into this. Finally, we hit the Kangor. And then I think I want to go ahead and just Hammer of Wrath our own Kangor, just to be able to get one of these bigger minions out. And we hit the Amplified Elix, so our opponent's going to have to go through that the hard way. And then we need to heal up, because we're actually going to be taking 6. So we're just going to go ahead and Flash of Light here. And I suppose we'll get down the Kangor. We're going to pass it back to our opponent at this point. So our opponent's healing, we're healing. But you can see we're almost out of cards. The Kangor, again, just really late this game, so we've been struggling to get there against the Blood DK. And again, this is potentially a game we just lose in fatigue. Even 2 copies of Alexandros Mograine hasn't been all that bad, just because of the Divine Shield. We are going to take 3 at the end of the turn, but we should be healing quite a bit. We'll be able to refresh the Divine Shield and heal again as well next turn. We're just kind of hoping that our opponent makes a mistake at this point. If they play some kind of a board clear and we pull Neptulon out of our hand and they can't remove it, it could be lethal potentially next turn. That would be 6. And then, of course, Neptulon is just an absolute ton of damage. That's bad. And we actually lose quite a bit here. We lose the Neptulon. And we also lost a Stoneborn General. So the Patchwork coming in clutch for our opponent here. And our opponent's also going to be... Well, I was going to say they're going to be in a spot for a potential lethal with the Astalor, but that's not going to be the case here with the Finley. And I think we actually just won. Our opponent maybe just miscalculated a little bit here with the amount of damage that we have on the board, but the Consecrate's actually going to close it out. I feel like that had to be some kind of a misplay, but you can see here, you never want to concede too early, because you can potentially just get there and be able to finish off an opponent who maybe potentially makes a misplay on a crucial turn. We're dancing, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. If you're still there after watching that last Blood Death Knight game, hit me with a like and a subscribe. If you can watch through that, I feel like that's probably going to be the right way to go. Again, we're looking for like Starlight Groove, Muster for Battle, and of course Kangor. Hoping this is not another Blood Death Knight, but I think Blood Death Knight has proven itself to be a pretty strong deck here in the early going. And certainly a lot of people are playing it, and you can see again, it's going to be another Blood Death Knight matchup, so we're going to be burning the midnight oil, I think, with this particular video here. And nothing to do, so we just pass turn. And I really hope Blood Death Knight doesn't become any more popular than it already is. This is kind of wild. So hopefully here our Kangor is not as deep in the deck. You can kind of see once the Kangor came down, we really just took over the board, and that's what enabled us to be able to win that particular game. We're going to coin out the Reveler on 5. That's going to lead us into Lead Dancer on 6. And actually, so you can see here, great news for us. We're going to be able to play Kangor on turn 4. And then we do have some minions in hand that are going to be able to come out. So we'll be able to see the difference now, at least in this particular matchup, as far as having Kangor as early as turn 4 versus having Kangor on, what was that, turn 12, turn 13? We'll see what kind of difference it makes in this particular matchup and whether or not we feel favored. So we're just going to coin it out, and again, we're just hoping that our opponent, again being a Renathal deck, hopefully they haven't figured out a way to put silence into the deck, because if they have, that's potentially going to be just really bad for us here. Feels like the animation on Astalor is bugged, by the way. Every time this card comes down, I feel like my Hearthstone client has frozen up. So now at this point, we do want to get some of these minions out of our hand. 2 out of the 3 minions actually have Rush, so we'll be able to get more healing. So I think we're going to trade into the 4/5. We just want to make sure that the Kangor dies. And our opponent's actually trying to rush us down. And then we'll be able to make this trade. And we hit a Lead Dancer. And I'm just going to go ahead and get the Kangor back down. So when the Lead Dancer dies, it's going to pull an Annoyo Troop out of our deck. And then when the Kangor dies, it's either going to hit an additional Lead Dancer or a Leviathan. And again, it just kind of looks like our opponent, they're playing a very aggressive play style here. Summon a minion from your deck with less attack than this minion. So I don't understand why the Annoyo Troop didn't come out, with the Annoyo Troop only having 3 health. Bit unfortunate there. And so the Lead Dancer, summon a minion from your deck with less attack than this minion.
Dance off.
A little bit unfortunate there. Again, I'm not totally sure that I understand exactly what that interaction was. But we're going to make our play. And we're going to keep right on rolling here. So the Annoyo Troop is a 3/6. And it should be pulled out. Less attack than this minion. This is a 4 attack minion. And you see, this time the Annoyo Troop does come out. So the first Lead Dancer that died, I guess it was only a 2/2 because it was summoned from the... That makes sense. It was only a 2/2 because it was summoned from the Masked Reveler. Unfortunately here, we need to draw because we only have 1 minion left in hand. I think I'm going to play the Service Bell. But there's no Paladin cards that we want.
Should I?
And Patchwork, again, has just been really good for our opponents. It seems to be just a card that really counters our exact game plan with what we're trying to do with this deck. And again here, I think I just want to draw. So I'm going to shoot to the Patchwork, and then likely we're just going to take this trade. And hopefully we get the Stoneborn General. We missed the Stoneborn General, which is unfortunate. The Illinois Troop's just going to go face here, so... unfortunately... we're just kind of out of steam a little bit. That Patchwork was really good for our opponent. And we're expecting our opponent to likely just play the Astalor, I would think. They're going to get the armor, not that they necessarily even need that armor, but just to be able to get the 8-mana Astalor in hand to potentially try to set up some kind of a lethal. No Muncher coming down as well. So we're not really doing anything to our opponent's health total here, which is unfortunate. Now this is going to pull our second Anoyo troop. Which I think is exactly what we want to do. I'm going to draw cards though. The other question is, we have so many weapons in hand, do we just need to equip a weapon and start punching our opponent in the face? And I think I like that a little bit better, so just going to go ahead and muster for battle here. And just going to take the damage. And then we're going to go face. And I think I can actually... Now we're going to go ahead and play the Kangor here. I was considering holding the Kangor just because of board space issues. Expecting our opponent to be able to clear this board in some way. Maybe with like a Corpse Explosion. A Blood Boil is also good. Again, we're just not making a whole lot of... a dent in our opponent's health total here, which is going to be bad. We're going to trade both of these. They're going to heal our opponent anyway. We are going to get the Stoneborn General out of our hand, though. And again, you can see here we're just kind of struggling in this particular matchup. I'm going to take the Flash of Light. And I'm just going to go ahead and play it. We need to find like a Neptulon and just hope that our opponent can't actually remove it.
Dance off.
We're going to make the trade with this guy. I'm going to go ahead and swing face. And then I guess at this point we're just going to play the Starlight, and then we're going to pass it back to our opponent. So this does have two bodies, but again, just the deck that we're up against, we expect that this is going to get removed. And we're just not going to be making a lot of headway on our opponent's health total here. And so it feels like in this matchup, we've seen it play out two different ways. Early Kangor and late Kangor. And it really feels like we should have lost that last game. Just kind of got lucky, I guess, our opponent not considering that we may have had just a little bit of damage from hand. And so with this particular game, we're just seeing that we're just not getting there. So now the question is, do we just play the Neptulon and hope that our opponent can't do anything about it? And I think that's kind of the situation that we're in. It's likely that our opponent has removal. I mean, it dies to Soul Stealers, it's going to die to Corpse Explosions. We can't really play around him. We're just not going to win. And playing the Kangor is actually just going to be slow now, so I'm going to play the Neptulon, and we're going to be finding out very quickly if we're going to be winning this game or not. We're basically running out of threats at this point. If our opponent can't clear this, then we're going to be in pretty good shape here. But even just playing like the Astalor, like just Hero Power Astalor, feels like it's going to clean up a lot of our board here, and we're just not going to be able to close out the game. So kind of coming to the point where this game is just past its prime. We know that we're not going to be able to win, so at this point we're starting to potentially think about something like a concede. I'm going to hang in there just a little bit, but it really feels like we're just not getting there. Our opponent's continuously at full health, even though they have no cards in hand. This eventually dies over the course of 3 turns. And we're going to Hammer of Wrath face because we need the damage, but I don't think there's really anything we have left. And one more Stoneborn General. We're going to go face, and then I'm just going to equip a bigger weapon and again swing face here. So I do think this is the last threat that we have. There may still be 1 Amplified Elic and 1 Annoyo Troop. And the Created by Frostworm Fury. Death Knight still has the best Discover pool in the game, by the way. Created by Frost Strike, so this minion is just healing them and not getting to attack. That's really bad for us here. I mean, if we play Equality, then it just dies to the next proc of the Blood Boil. I kind of don't just want to play the Stoneborn General out on the board. That feels like it would be pretty bad. I would rather Kangor, so maybe we just Equality Consecrate to remove this and get the Kangor down on the board and go ahead and take a swing here. Then we're going to pass it back. I kind of wonder if potentially maybe we want to run Astalor in this deck, but it's just not good with so many of the other cards that we have, like Lead Dancer. If it's still in your deck, and then if it actually gets pulled directly onto the board, you don't get the Battle Cry effect, so I guess you never want to run Astalor. They actually missed 2 healing on that. And we actually just lose the game. I believe that's the second Patchwork, so unfortunately our opponent hit some really good discovers here. 2 Patchworks. They also hit the Frostworm's Fury, and we just have no chance. I mean, that's 8. Yeah, we're just not winning this game, so I'm going to bow out. That's going to do it for the video. This deck is really strong, especially against the aggro decks. Unfortunately, we just hit a lot of Blood DKs in the games that we played in this video, but you can see we're definitely unfavored in the matchup, but you can sneak in a win. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Uncorrupt, and good luck out on the ladder.